Hey, 8th graders. So, in our last lesson, we talked about managing our emotions. We talked about using empathy to better understand and identify with the emotions of others, and you were able to recognize the emotions of others simply by looking at their faces. How else do we communicate in person? That's right. So we share information and meaning with our words, and we share our intent and mood with our body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions, right? So these verbal and nonverbal elements work together to convey our message. Communication gets tricky, however, when elements of the process are missing or not working properly. What happens if the speaker's words, tone of voice, facial expression, and body language don't match? Right, so we might sense that something isn't quite right, and we'll probably get a mixed message. So, for this activity, we are going to need 4 volunteers. So, teachers, if you could just pause this video, select 4 students that are willing to go through these scripts, and you should have those scripts that I dropped off for you. So, go ahead and pause here and get that together. All right, so does everyone have their scripts? Awesome. So, let's do an experiment to examine how mixed messages happen. Listen to each friend as they comment on the kids' nice hair. Listen for their real meaning by interpreting their words, tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language. So guys, go ahead and pick who you're going to be and go ahead and do this script. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do this. All right, volunteers, thank you so much. Go ahead and have a seat if you have not already. So, what just happened? Did everyone like the hair? Not everyone, right? So, who really meant what they said? Good, it was friend 3. How can you tell? Right, so his body language and tone of voice were consistent with paying a compliment. What about the other 2 friends? Right, so friend 1 responded sarcastically, implying that they didn't really like his hair, right? And then friend 2 sounded like they felt sorry for the friend with the hair, suggesting that they thought that something was wrong with it. So when we say kind words in a mean or sarcastic tone, we send a mixed message. What should the listener believe, our words or our tone of voice? Good, tone of voice, right? So why should we believe someone's tone of voice instead of our words? Right, so your tone of voice, body language, and facial expressions usually reflect our true feelings. So we know that how we say something is just as important as what we say. How you ask for something and how you present yourself will affect how others respond to you. So let's demonstrate how this works. I'm going to play the role of an employee asking for a raise. So you guys are going to be the boss, okay? So I'm going to ask for a raise using 3 communication styles: passive, aggressive, and assertive. After the interview, you will name which style I used. All right, so here's the first one. You ready? I'm so sorry to bother you. You wouldn't mind giving me a raise, would you? All right, so what style do you think I used? Good, it was passive, right? How would you describe a passive communication style? Right, so passive is a quiet or indirect way of speaking, not really standing up for yourself, and it kind of demonstrates a lack of confidence or a fear of offending others, right? All right, here's the next one. Give me a raise now. What would you say that one was? That one was aggressive, right? So how would you describe an aggressive communication style? Right, so aggressive is kind of forceful, kind of rude, loud and demanding, inconsiderate, right? So here's the next one. Mr. Jones, I have worked for this company for 5 years, and I have increased sales by 80%. I would like a pay raise. I would appreciate an answer by Friday. So which style did I use? Good, that one was assertive. How would you describe an assertive communication style? Right, so it would be to stand up for yourself and respect others and being honest, direct, and confident, right? So which style out of those 3 do you think will get me the results I want? Probably assertive, right? Why do you think that? Good, those are good responses. So people who ask assertively are more likely to get what they want because they're confident, respectful, and direct. I want you guys to go ahead and turn to page 9 in your workbooks to the section titled Say It Like You Mean It. Each of these scenarios has the potential for being uncomfortable. Review the assertive speaking techniques, read the scenarios, and write down how you would handle each one of these assertively. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to go ahead and do this, okay? All right, so how did you approach your neighbor about the barking dog? Good. So we were trying to be calm, confident, and non-confrontational, right? So good answers. How did you approach your slacking teammate in the second scenario? Good. So try this assertive approach when you need to communicate with others. You will find that people will sit up and take notice of you and treat you with respect. How does it feel to speak to someone who leans away from you with their arms crossed and isn't looking at you when they speak? That's right. So it feels like the person you're talking to isn't really interested in what you have to say. On the other hand, what if someone is leaned towards you, looked relaxed, and looked at you while you were speaking? What would this mean? It probably means they're pretty interested in what you have to say. Good listening demonstrates care and respect for the person speaking, and it's a valuable tool for ensuring long-lasting friendships. When we listen empathetically and make an effort to understand what is being said, including the feelings that the speaker is conveying, we become not just listeners, but active listeners. So look at the middle of your workbook, page 9, to the section titled Listen Like You Mean It. These are some techniques to use so that you can be active listeners. So those techniques are: listen empathetically, smile and acknowledge what the speaker is saying by nodding. You do not have to agree with the speaker, and often the speaker doesn't want this either. Rather, the speaker wants you to know that you understand how they feel. Number 2 is don't interrupt. Focus on what the speaker is saying. Third step is to ask clarifying questions if you don't understand what the speaker is trying to say. And then you can paraphrase what you've heard. Putting the message in your own words allows the speaker to correct you if you have misinterpreted something. So we're going to examine active listening in action. Once again, I need 4 more volunteers. So teachers, go ahead and pause this video, select 4 students to be volunteers, and go ahead and hand out these scripts that have Victor, Alondra, Marie, and Garrett on them. And have students go ahead and pick who they'd like to be. All right, guys, have you observed your scripts? Everybody know what they're playing? Awesome. So class, you will be observing Alondra as she attempts to share some exciting news with her friends. Decide which one of her friends is the active listener. Are you ready? All right, so thank you so much, volunteers. You can go ahead and have a seat if you haven't already. Who was the active listener and why? Good, so it was Garrett. He really listened, asked clarifying questions, and reacted appropriately to the news, right? Can anyone describe Victor's listening style? Right, so it definitely wasn't an active one. He interrupted constantly and never talked about Alondra's experience. It was all about him. Was Marie a good listener? No. Why wasn't she? Right, so she was completely distracted, didn't ever make eye contact, and she didn't focus on what Alondra said, right? Now put yourself in Alondra's shoes. How do you think she felt? Right, so she probably felt like Marie and Victor weren't really interested in her news, and that Garrett was the only one who really cared about what she was saying, right? The active listener is engaged in the conversation and receives the speaker's message as it was intended. In addition, the active listener communicates respect through positive feedback. Look at the bottom of page 9 in your workbooks to the section titled Listen Like You Mean It. Read the 2 scenarios and write down how you would handle each one using the active listening techniques. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. Alright, so which active listening techniques would you use to better understand what your friend is trying to tell you? You guys can throw some answers out. You might have some different ones. Good. So what about scenario 2? Which active listening techniques would you use to understand what is bothering your teammate? Awesome, those are great answers. So effective communication isn't as simple as exchanging a couple of words. There are many elements to consider. To practice the skills we have learned today, we're going to play a game called Listen Up. In this group activity, you will apply your effective communication skills to replicate pictures. Once you are in your groups, choose a partner and decide who will be the speaker and the listener. Each group will receive 4 picture cards. Keep the cards face down and do not look at them. Each speaker will choose 1 card. Speakers and listeners will sit back to back so that the listener cannot see the picture card and the speaker cannot see what the listener is doing. Look at workbook page 10. Each image is made up of various shapes, including triangles, squares, parallelograms, and rectangles. To start the game, speakers will draw a card. Tell the listener the number of the image you will use. Do not identify the image. For example, the speaker may not say, "We're creating a star." only describe the location and the details of the shape. Listeners will ask clarifying questions to make sure you understand what the speaker is telling you. Once you have completed your image, the listener will reveal it to the speaker to see if it matches. The first pair in your group to correctly replicate the image wins. For the second round, you will switch roles with your partner, put the picture cards face down on the table, and mix them up. The speakers will choose a different picture card to describe to the listener. Alright guys, so we're going to complete the example together. I will be the speaker and you will be the listeners. Use the example image, okay? So look at the bottom half of the image. There are 4 large triangles that form the bottom half of the image. Focus on the 2 large triangles that form the square on the bottom left of the image. Did you guys find that? Shade in the large triangle on the top right of that square. Alright. So now focus on the 2 large triangles that form the square at the bottom right of the image. Shade in the large triangle on the top left of the square. These 2 shaded in triangles should form a point in the middle of the image. Alright, so go ahead and shade in the medium triangle that is immediately above and in the middle of the 2 large triangles you shaded in. Shade in the parallelogram that is immediately left of the medium triangle that you just shaded in. It is the only parallelogram in the image. Now, look at the right side of the medium triangle you shaded in. Shade in this small triangle to the right of the medium triangle. Finally, shade in the small triangle that is immediately beside the small triangle that you just shaded in. It should form a point with the large triangle in the middle of the right-hand side of the image. Alright, so how many of your pictures look like this? Good job! So now it's your turn. So when you're the speaker, remember to be detailed and descriptive. When you are the listener, remember to ask clarifying questions if you don't understand. So teachers, go ahead and divide the class into groups of 4 to 6 students and distribute a set of descriptive cards to each group. Have the speakers stand or sit behind their listeners so that they're back to back. And I'll give you guys a few minutes to complete this game, okay? All right, so what was challenging about being the speaker? Right, so probably describing the exact location and shape, not being able to see what the listener was doing, right? What was challenging about being the listener? Good, so listening while everyone was talking, trying to figure out exactly what the speaker was describing. Was anyone better at being the speaker rather than the listener? Awesome. Was anyone better at being this listener than the speaker? Good job, guys. So, becoming an effective communicator takes practice. We can build stronger relationships when we communicate our thoughts and feelings effectively. In our next lesson, we will put our communication skills to work in building relationships. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you guys next time.